You like that? That's my
I
intro.
like
It's
that.
crazy,
I
right?
like
I
that.
know
I
everybody
like
listens
that.
to it. They're like, it sounds like it's from the radio station. I was like, I
It
know.
sure do. That's legit. That's legit.
It is another episode of Say It Loud podcast with your favorite Gilf here, Karen L of Say It Loud, of course. And today, in my hot seat and sharing the mic with me is Mr. Bruce McIntyre of Save Rose Foundation. Hi, Bruce.
Hello, hello, hello. How you
How
doing,
are
Karen?
you?
Doing good. I'm chilling. I'm chilling.
So everybody that comes on my show, I actually vet them. My show's only it's by invitation only. And I'm not like podcast bougie, but I am. You know what I mean? Like
Heard
if
you.
we don't have nothing to talk about, then why I'm inviting you? So I
Heard
have an
you.
angle when I invite people, and I actually do my vetting. And I went to your website and I started reading. And I'm an English teacher, so I can read. You know what I mean? I'd be like, well, what that mean? What are you trying to,
Hmm.
And I went to your website and I just was drawn in on so many different levels that I was like, all right, let's do it because we need to share this with other people, you know.
Appreciate you.
And I don't want to tell your story. I want you to tell your story, but I just think it's a story that needs to be told.
Definitely, and I'm truly honored to be on here, and I appreciate you having me
Of course.
for sure.
So tell us about how you started Save a Rose Foundation.
So I created the Savor Rose Foundation back in May of 2020 after losing my fiance, Amber Rose Isaac, due to medical negligence and systemic racism. She was neglected throughout her entire pregnancy, and she ultimately passed away due to an unscheduled emergency C-section,
Hmm.
and she didn't live. She ended up having HELP syndrome, which she didn't find out until they induced her labor, which is a heightened elevation of the blood and liver enzymes, and her platelets were very low. Her platelets were in the 40s by the time she was in the hospital, and if your platelets are at a 150, they need to be monitored. If they drop down to a 125, they need to be monitored and prepped for treatment. They let hers drop all the way down to the 40s. Her blood was unable to clot, and her blood was water like. They cut her open 3 different times. She didn't survive the C-section, and she passed away. And then, after facing such a devastating loss like that, you think that there are systems in place to help you,
Hmm.
but there's not. I felt the full force of the system trying to work against me versus work with me.
Right.
And I started to notice these cycles and these terms that they were using, um, and I was just really paying attention to everything. And when she was alive, I was showing up to all of the prenatal appointments and everything. I was showing up to everything because it was, it's our baby, it's our child. We were having this
Mhm.
child together, and I needed to be her support system as her man,
That's
as her
right.
supporter. So I was at every single appointment up until the pandemic happened. Her platelets. We found out that we were pregnant in December of 2019. No, September 27th, 2019,
Hmm.
and her platelets started to decrease at a rapid rate in December of 2019. So this is months before the
Wow.
pandemic. There were doctors signing off on her paperwork, like everything was fine, and her health was clearly deteriorating at a rapid rate. And there's multiple OBGYN signing off on her paperwork, like everything's cool, and she's dying, and
Right.
she's advocating for herself. I'm advocating for her. Her mother also worked. We were visiting 2 different Montefiore facilities. The first one was Montefiore Moses, because it was closer to our home. And her mother worked at Montefiore Einstein, which we ended up having to transfer because we were facing so much neglect from Montefiore Moses. We got midwives, and we got a midwife, a nurse midwife, and a mentee that were working with us. And we sent over our blood work, and we sent over our paperwork. And the very next day, the midwife was able to catch what was going on with Amber, and why, and that her health was deteriorating rapidly.
Right.
and our midwife was the one that bring that to our attention. And so because that was going on, Amber was too high risk to be seen. We were unable to have a home birth. We were unable to be seen by a midwife. We
Right.
were unable to go to a birthing center. So due to the negligence that we were receiving from the hospital, she was pushed into high risk, and she was forced to have to go to the hospital. And our midwife was telling us, well, I don't understand why she isn't receiving medical assistance immediately.
Right.
We're in our second trimester, transitioning into our third. She's supposed to be seen every 2 weeks, transitioning into every week. They're
Mm-hmm.
not seeing her. Telehealth came out. They use telehealth as an excuse to further, neglect her,
Right.
and not listen to her concerns, and just brushing things off. And we end up going to get blood work done to see what's going on, to see why she's feeling like this, because she's having troubles breathing, and she's feeling dizzy, she's having headaches, her vision's getting blurry. It went from in your third trimester you want to try to walk as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
to for a smooth delivery, so we would do that. And it went from being able to walk, half a mile to the park, to barely being able to make it down the block.
Right.
So it was very concerning, and her concerns were being brushed off. We get a call on April 18th or April 20th or April 18th of 2020 to come in to the hospital. We were supposed to be seen for we were just supposed to be getting work done and seeing what was going on. Um, and it ended up being, she has to be there for a whole night. She has to be there for the whole weekend. We were just, really concerned because she's tried to keep herself very healthy. And then during the pandemic, we followed all the procedures,
Right.
stayed inside, we social distance and everything.
Yeah.
We were safe. We took all the safety precautions. And, when we got to the hospital, as a concerned father, I'm trying to explain to the receptionist that she doesn't need to be by herself.
Right.
That I'm there. Her mother is there. Her mother worked in that hospital for 25 years out of Amber's 26 years of life. Um, and I'm telling them, if I can't be with her, at least let her mom be with her. I
Right.
get disrespected and called out my name. I get called Mr. Baby Daddy.
Oh wow.
They're trying to seat me, and then they're telling me to get out of the hospital. They're telling me to wait outside of the hospital. Um, they're not allowing her mother to go up with her, even though she works in the hospital. She has the access to the hospital and all the proper PPE to be in the hospital. They
Right.
still weren't allowing her. Um, so she ends up having to stay for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
A few days later, she calls me in. They allow me to come in as long as I take a
COVID.
COVID test. I
Mm-hmm.
passed my COVID test. They allowed me to be in the hospital, and at that time, they weren't allowing partners to be in the hospital. They weren't allowing midwives or doulas to be in the hospitals. But they made the exception for me because there was clear negligence there,
Right.
and they knew I was the father. Amber was alive to tell them that I was the father. That was the only reason I was there. So after she passes away, um, I'm trying to, of course, wrap my head around what just happened.
Right.
But not only is that they're not giving me access to my son. So she passes away, and they tell me, oh well, you need a DNA test done because Amber is no longer alive to attest that you are the father. And I'm like, well, there's paperwork that says otherwise.
Right.
And they make me go through this whole process, and I'm
But
supposed
you
to
were
fill out
there the whole time,
I
so
was
they
there the whole time. I was there the whole
and
time.
her
That's
mother was
exactly
there.
what her mother was there too. Um, but yeah, they had to give my son the rights to my son to Amber's mother, which was the closest of kin. Luckily,
Mm-hmm.
Amber's mother was already staying with us because she was supposed to help Amber as she was recovering and I was
Right.
working. So luckily, she was already staying in my house. Um, so my son ended up getting released to her, and but he ended up being home with me. But I started to notice that, these are cycles that we see in the black and brown community, especially for
Right.
black men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my lawyer sent in my DNA test like a year into surrogate's court, like within the first year, and I didn't get anything back for the first year. We're
A
calling
whole year?
surrogates a whole year is we're trying to get my DNA testing through so I can get my, the updated birth certificate, because
Right.
if I don't have that birth certificate, I'm excluded from, at that time, I
Everything.
wasn't, yeah, everything. I wasn't able to get stimulus for my son. I wasn't able to get social security for my son. I wasn't able to get child tax care credits for my son. None of that.
Yeah.
And so, and on top of that, in order to bring a lawsuit forward, I have to get my name on the birth certificate, and I have to get all of that stuff taken care of. And
Mm.
I started noticing that this is what they were doing to a lot of black men, was they were, because you only have a 2.5, 3 year window to bring forward a lawsuit, and they tried to push me outside of that window. We're going on. My son will be 3 on April 20th, and I still don't have the updated birth certificate. 3 years,
That's
and
crazy.
I just did an interview with the city today, on surrogate's court, because they've been doing an investigation, and they've been looking into it, because they've been doing that to a lot of fathers. So a lot of black fathers didn't know that they were being pushed outside of that limit to proceed with legal actions.
It's crazy to me to hear that, because those same black fathers, it don't take that long to put them on child support. It don't take
Exactly.
them that long to lock you up for your parking ticket. You know what I mean? It doesn't take you that long. So to be able, it don't take you that long to get a passport.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so even if you
Exactly.
took a DNA test, 90 days tops. Like, it is what it is. You
Hmm.
know, I find that crazy, but I do understand, and I do see the biases and imbalances, um,
Hmm.
and the equity that we don't get as people of color. Um,
Definitely.
and then especially, I mean, it happens to women, but then especially to the men,
Mm-hmm.
because you almost go in there and it feels like no matter what your relationship is, there's somebody looking at you and just assuming who you are, what this, like the comment that you made, that someone will just be like, oh, well, you're just the baby daddy, or you're just, and kind of in some ways emasculate you in that situation,
Exactly.
and take that away. And it's people who don't even know you.
Exactly.
3 years.
Exactly.
I still can't believe that. 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. I still don't have my updated birth certificate. 3 years, and it's been going on to a lot of black fathers, um, and uh, and then even with the hospital after the fact, like I was mentioning, there's no systems that are set in place for black men, especially, but women also, but black men especially. There's no system that's set in place after such a devastating loss like that. Instead of, the hospital reached out and was trying to give us services like, grief counseling and therapy, and without even giving myself and Renita, Amber's mothers, the proper evaluations, they're already trying to throw antidepressants and strong drugs in our face, like Xanax and all these other things. And I'm thinking, is this really how they're trying to get me to cope with this loss?
Hmm.
How am I supposed to take care of my newborn child who just lost his mother if I'm doped up on drugs and I'm left incompetent to take care of him? Then I have to
Right.
worry about child protective services showing up at my
Yeah,
door, my son
exactly.
becoming state property. And
Hmm.
this is a perpetuated cycle that we
Hmm.
keep seeing going on.
Yeah.
And once I noticed that, I knew that I needed to step in, and I know that I needed to do something about it. Before the pandemic, I was a financial loan advisor on Wall Street. I used to work at the 40 Exchange building, and my job was to literally help people grow their businesses. And so when I seen the lack of services in the Bronx, I was like, I have to create services.
Right.
And I started, thinking and coming up with ideas, and partnering with other community leaders. And the first thing of order that I was thinking about was, bringing a freestanding midwifery led birthing center to the Bronx.
Right. I saw that.
Yeah, so that's one of my main projects that we're working on now. We got our bill passed because I've also been messing with legislation and been a part of these boards and been crafting legislation alongside some of
I
these board
appreciate
members.
that. I
Oh,
appreciate that.
for sure,
Because
and we
a lot of times what happens in these cases is that because hospitals have big lawyers and wait a long
exactly,
time and know how to play chess, right?
exactly,
And they assume that you don't have the money for a lawyer and that you're not educated, and you know what, we're going to throw you this amount of money, we're going to throw you this service, and that should be okay. And
mm,
so unless there's legislation to hold them accountable, right, and people know about it, then those big companies and big hospitals and big insurance companies are not going to take it seriously.
exactly, exactly, and yeah, we created some of these programs, and or we got our bill passed um, at the uh, at the end of 2021. Governor Hochul passed our bill, our midwifery birthing center bill. However, she did gut the bill completely, and it still makes it harder for people of color to obtain a birthing center because you practically have to be rich to even go through the application process.
Wow.
Yeah, so it still substantially affects Black and Brown people of ownership of birthing centers. However, we're still working around it, and hopefully by if we get all the funding together, we can break ground in July
Oh, that's
and
nice.
start building a
That's
birthing center.
soon.
Yeah, that's soon. That's soon. So
That's soon.
hopefully, fingers crossed, we get everything together. And then I'm supposed to hear about these birthing center regulations here coming up on the 9th, so we can see what's going on with that and see what we need to do and what we need to work around. But that's coming. That's coming for sure.
I love it. I
And
love that you took this and you were like, you know what, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do something about
have
it. I'm
to,
not going to talk about it. I'm going to be about it.
have to.
My next question to you is, how can men better be educated and supportive on this topic? Because a lot of women are like, they know what they're feeling, they know what they're going through. And yes, I remember I had my first child at 17 years old. I remember going to the hospital and the nurses being so mean to me. They were just mean. They just, mind you, my dad worked at the hospital. They assumed I didn't have insurance. They assumed, like, I don't know what they thought, but they were mean. Like,
Mm,
I wanted to cry. I don't want to be here. I'm in pain. Why aren't you doing anything? Me,
mhm,
you know? And I think sometimes like the men that are in the room want to be supportive and they want to be helpful and they don't know how to use their voice. So how can men be better educated so that they could support their family, their loved ones, their daughters, their partners, whatever the case may be, because
mhm.
there's not enough conversation around it.
Yeah, and it's sad that you actually say that because that's um, yet again another ongoing cycle that we see. That's exactly what happened to Amber. The receptionists were being nasty and ugly with her. Got her transferring between different offices that she's not supposed to be in. Misinformation, all types of things, and she was. They were being disrespectful to her too, and like I mentioned, I was able to take Amber to almost all of her prenatal appointments, um, and there was one time where I didn't go inside with her, but I was just sitting outside the car. I think I had like a phone meeting or something, and she's texting me and she's upset and she's crying because she's telling me that the receptionists are even being rude to her after she already doesn't feel like she's being heard by her OBGYN.
Mhm.
And I'm telling her, nah, for real, like that can't, like I'm in disbelief. But I know if she's saying that that's happening, then I know
It's
that that's just
happening.
happening,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to disregard how she was feeling and what she was saying. And so I went in the next time with her. She was dealing with that same receptionist, and and I seen how the receptionist was interacting with her, and I intervened.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that we are paying attention to what's being said and what's being done. And I think as men, a better way for us to step up is to want to be educated on this, on reproductive health and womb wellness, and really understanding your partner's body, your partner's autonomy, and how you can help. If you can make something as easy as possible, of course you want to do that for your partner,
Right.
especially if she's already dealing with a lot. So like with my partner, once I found out that she was just so like upset from dealing with the hospital and dealing with different OBs,
Hmm.
I took it upon myself to do research on what midwives and what doulas do. And I ended up finding our midwife. I interviewed our midwife, everything. I introduced her to the midwife. The midwife answered all of her questions. Was able to tell her everything that she needed to know.
Wow.
And trying to find different solutions for your partner, because a lot of us feel like that the hospitals or the OBs, that their word, the doctors, their word is law. We have to listen to them. No,
Hmm.
there's other options. I advise that you get three, four, five opinions,
Right.
and see what makes the most sense to you. Of course, just listening to what your partner's advocating for or how your partner's feeling. The things that she's complaining, because she's not just complaining for no reason.
Right.
You really gotta take a mental note of what's going on with her and how she's feeling, and making sure that you're constantly checking in if anything's feeling new, if anything's feeling different. That way, if she's not able to advocate for herself, you can advocate for her. You can
Right.
step up, or you can say, "Oh, well, she's also been feeling this, or she's also been doing this at home. She's
Right.
been extra tired at home.
Yeah.
Her headaches are more intense. Just be more observant to your partner and her needs. God forbid you don't want to be in a situation like mine, and then you don't know what happened.
Right.
That'll be a shitty situation to be in, or a shitty feeling to have, because you're not gonna know what to do. You're not gonna know where to go. And a lot of men, when they don't know things and they don't want to ask questions, they're gonna shut down.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to prevent. So ask as many questions as you can. For the females, for the ladies, I advise that y'all try to get men more involved. Um, my partner was making sure that I was involved
Right.
with the pregnancy, because of course it takes two of y'all. So
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I do think that you have to be present and you have to know your partner really well, because when they are in that moment, or healthy or not healthy in that situation where they're having a child, you have to be their advocate and you have to be their voice sometimes. And
hmm
so you need to know what's going on. You need to know them really well. You need to know what's going on so that you can be an advocate, because if I'm lying there and I need someone to make the decisions and put their, let me know or protect me, then they need to know what's going on to be able to
hmm
do that, you know?
exactly, because there's nobody. I'm telling you right now, nobody is coming to help you, except for your community. Nobody else is gonna come help you. You don't have, not the city, the state, the government. They're not gonna come help you. You literally have to go do it yourself. So after Amber passed away, Governor Cuomo was in a city council hearing in May of 2020,
Mhm.
and he my advocacy work blew up immediately after Amber passed away. Maybe like a day or two, I was going viral all over the world, not just the United
Yeah.
States, but all over the world. And so Cuomo and a lot of them were getting a lot of heat. So they're asking, Governor Cuomo at the time, about our situation and what they plan on doing. And I hear him, I'm watching him, and he says, "My maternal task force is going to help them and take care of it." Right. Then he turns around and creates an executive order trying to block people like me from suing.
Right. So
You
how are
know,
you
it
being
went from
fair?
if you die from COVID, you can't proceed with legal action, right? And then it changed from, well, if you died in between the months of April and August, between that time, you still can't sue. So he tried to block me from suing. Um, Luckily,
What would be the benefit of doing that? Like, because then hospitals don't have any
because the hospital,
responsibility or
no
take any,
accountability.
no
No
accountability,
accountability. No
and none
accountability.
of the doctors involved. Like that's
Exactly. They don't want no accountability.
but they should be held accountable.
They
Like,
should be. Yeah,
if
they
I
should
come to
be.
the doctor every month for 7 months and you're supposed to be taking care of me, and I'm trusting that you're taking care of me, and I'm telling you how I'm feeling, and
Hmm.
you're negligent with my health,
Hmm.
then whose responsibility is that? Because I came, right? And I
Exactly.
did everything that I was supposed to do that you told me to do.
Exactly. And luckily we were able to show negligence before the pandemic. This was going on. She was being neglected before the pandemic even was occurring, existed, was brought up, all
Right.
of that.
Yeah.
Um, and I felt like they were trying to use COVID as an excuse. It's not an
Right.
excuse
Yeah.
to neglect her. Her head surgeon never showed up for her. Passed her down to a much younger team of doctors, which I'm still unaware to this day if they were residents or if they were undergrads, because they were
Right.
allowing undergrads to perform as well.
Right.
And I speak to doctors all the time. They're like, "Well, she has low platelets. Why are they cutting her open?" You
Right.
know,
But they
they
weren't doing the blood test before, because that's
like,
not like something hard to figure out.
exactly. They tried to give her blood transfusion as she was bleeding out already.
Yeah,
It,
but
it
at
doesn't
that
it doesn't
point,
make no sense. It doesn't make no
right,
sense. And so
right,
even afterwards, I'm looking at her death certificate and I'm noticing a lot of red flags on that death certificate. Her death certificate was never stamped off by a medical examiner, and the autopsy was performed by the head surgeon that had neglected her. That's a
right.
huge
So
red
they're gonna
flag.
save their own. Yeah, they're gonna save. They're not gonna admit to anything.
Exactly, exactly. And so, so I started up the Save a Rose Foundation after Amber passed away, to combat and dismantle the systemic flaws within the medical system and redirecting the course of birthing equity towards better birthing solutions. So that's the work that I'm doing now.
Wow, that's a
Uh,
mouthful. But like, I was like, oh, okay, that's a lot. Like, you're so fluid with it. I'm like, wow, wow.
yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, that's it's a wonderful mission. It's a sad story, obviously, but it's a wonderful mission. Um, what's the goals now to bring that into the community or a number of communities? Like, what's the goal
Yeah.
now?
So the goal now is, of course, to bring freestanding midwifery-led birthing centers throughout New York State, because New York State pretty much shuns midwifery care. They pretty much shun midwives, and so we're trying to get our CPM, our Certified Professional Midwifery bills passed. We're trying to get the New York Health Act passed so we can have exceptional, quality care for people,
Right,
with insurance. Because be real, insurance ain't paying for nothing nowadays.
right,
Insurance doesn't cover much nowadays. So it's very important that we get our New York Health Act passed, our Grieving Families Act passed, because it'll help families like mine who were unmarried. We were married to be, but we, due to her passing away, we
right,
weren't able to have that. So the Grieving Families Act will help families like mine who are unmarried but still live in the household and they're still
hmm,
raising the child, and
hmm,
it'll give people time to cope and grieve, and
right.
because when this situation happens to you, they're like, oh well, go back to work.
Yeah,
And
like I
that's,
can't.
you can't,
Yeah,
you can't. So
yeah,
we need to get our Grieving Families Act passed. Um, of course, trying to make midwifery um, more accessible to people like us, and having
hmm,
insurance cover it versus people having to pay like 4 grand out of pocket because insurance won't cover it. Even though midwifery and doula care is cheaper, insurance still won't pay for it.
yeah,
And I think that's very important for us to have. What else do we need? We also have Woombus, which is it's a health and wellness mobile unit.
uh-huh,
It's a big pink sprinter van that goes around all the underserved areas of the Bronx, the historically underserved areas, and we offer access to midwives, doulas, acupuncturists, chiropractors, dance and movement, health and wellness, education on womb wellness and reproductive justice and health, and all of these things. And we offer these services practically for free to the communities. We do a lot of community baby showers as well.
Oh,
But
that's so
we'll,
nice.
yeah, we'll rent out a big space and have people of the community come grab what they need: strollers, diapers, bassinets, carriers, whatever they need. We set them up with that. We set them up with lactation consultants. With fathers like myself, because Amber held like a pretty strict vegan diet and pescatarian diet up until she became pregnant. And I still wanted my son to still carry those same vitamins and nutrients he was receiving from
Right.
his mother. So I had people that helped me out with lactation consultants, and they were able to donate breast milk to me. I was able to have my son on breast milk for a whole year and strong, and still was on that
Yeah.
same diet plan that he was with his mother. Um, what else are we trying to get? We're still trying to get the
That's
Omnibus Act in
wonderful.
Congress. Oh, thank you, thank you,
That's
thank you.
wonderful. I'm like, you do all that? Like, so when
Yeah,
do
I
you
do a
sleep?
lot. I do a lot. I do a lot. We also have the Amber Rose Isaac Access to Home Birth Scholarship Program. And
Uh-huh.
what that does is it offsets the cost of insurance premiums, whatever insurance is unable to cover for a home birth. The Amber Rose Isaac, the Amber Rose Isaac Access to Home Birth Scholarship Program will cover that. Will cover
Oh,
those
wow.
costs. And since May of 2020, we've been able to help over 70 families.
That's nice. That's
Thank
nice.
you.
How do people support you? How do they get involved?
Well, you can go to www.saverosefoundation.org and you can donate to us there. You can follow our pages on Instagram at Save a Rose Foundation. You can follow us on Facebook, Save a Rose Foundation, or you can follow us on Twitter. And then we're also featured in the award-winning film called Aftershock that's on Hulu. If y'all can go support that, we won the most impactful film award at Sundance Film Festival.
Nice.
We've won numerous Critics' Choice Awards and many different awards, and it's that's strong. It's a very important film to see, especially if you're a black woman. Black men too. It's very important for us to learn, the history of birthing and trying to bring the power back to the people when it comes to birthing, and of course, like how our ancestral practices were as well. We need to get the power back to that as well.
Watch.
Holistic care and um, yeah, that's what we need. But we were supposed to go to the Oscars, but we found out that we just got snubbed out of the Oscars. They weren't really, they weren't. We already know that they don't support too many black filmmakers.
Right.
But it
Right.
was just to be just to be a runner up for that was just an
Yeah.
incredible
To be in the
feeling. So
conversation.
yeah, exactly. It was an incredible
And what is
feeling.
the film about? It's a documentary.
Yeah, it's a documentary. It's on Hulu, and it speaks on the history of midwifery care. I'm a focal. It studies. The focal point of the story is myself and another gentleman, Omari Maynard, a good friend of mine who also lost his partner, and it shows how we've both been fighting for our partners through our advocacy work and just how far and what brotherhood, it changes that stigma on how, on black men supporting each other
Right. Right.
and showing each other love and uplifting one another. So it follows that story, and it touches on the history of midwifery care and doula care and how white physicians overran the model of care, and they pretty much shunned midwifery and doula practices, and how doctors and OBs were calling black midwives dirty and
Mm-hmm.
just making a really bad name for us. So we couldn't, and practically making it illegal for us to do our own practices and what
Right.
we believe in.
Right.
They practically, and how they made it illegal for us, and then how also how that plays into today's model of care, and how the literal medical system gatekeeps people, black people, people of color, from it gatekeeps them from care, from quality care.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very important film to view if you're planning on having a family, or if you have a sister who's pregnant, or if you're pregnant. It's very informative, very educational, very eye-opening, and very powerful. And the CDC announced back in September that Over 85% of the deaths for Black women in childbirth were preventable, and for
Right.
Indigenous women, it's over 95%. And so I tell people that we're living in a time of genocide.
Right.
It was, it was way safer for our great great grandparents to give birth than it is for
At
us
home.
today.
Right.
At home, it was
At
safer
home.
for them at home than it is for us to do today.
Yeah.
So it highlights a bunch of that, and yeah, I think it's very important for us to watch, for everyone to watch.
I'm gonna watch it. It's really crazy because as you're talking, I'm thinking about all these instances in my own life where I was faced with obstacles like that, and how it's almost, in some ways, we're so used to it,
Hmm.
and it seems normal, but it's not.
Hmm.
There, like you said, the statistics for women of color that pass away during childbirth is higher than any other demographic. Um, in this country in particular, there have been a number of documentaries like yours and other ones that show how young women of color are treated in hospitals, where they are left, on a bed, on a gurney in the
Hmm.
hallway, where they are not given medication when they need medication. I have heard stories where when white women go into the hospital, have their babies, their side of the maternity ward is quiet and everybody's comfortable and they have these big rooms and nobody's, you know, feeling anything. And then you go to the other side and nobody has gotten the medication that they needed or requested. The due diligence is not there the same way. And it's kind of scary when
Exactly.
you think about it. You know, it's kind of
Exactly.
scary that someone has that power and you really and you trust someone in that position, because when you're having a baby, like, I don't know how to deliver a baby. You put your trust in these people and they're not looking out for your best interest,
Exactly.
and they're using what it is, and it is systematic. I'm going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. It is
Hmm.
systematic
It
because
sure
it's
is.
not just, oh, racism in the sense of who you are. It is the socioeconomic, it is the psychology of it, it is the biases of it. There's a lot more than just like, oh, what you look like. There's people that are like, well, you don't have money, so I'm not going to help you, right?
Exactly.
You're not
Exactly.
married. I remember going to the hospital, like, you're not married. Just you going in there having a baby,
Yeah.
and not being married, people look at you differently. Going in as a young person, people treat you differently, and so you're
Hmm.
not getting the care that you need because they feel like they just simply don't have to give it to you.
Exactly. So that's exactly what happened to us. We during our first OBGYN visit, she was asking if we were married. We told her no, that but we have plans to be married. And she was, screwing her face and smacking her lips
Why,
and
that's our business though. Like, I
exactly,
don't feel
exactly,
like if I walk in somewhere, I should have to define that to you. I don't feel
exactly,
like the doctor that makes any different how you take care of me. It's not your business. If I ask you that question and say, can you be my doctor or not be my doctor, if I don't agree with how you choose to live your life, like, does that make a difference on your end? If I flipped it the other way, I just don't feel like families deserve to be treated like, well, if I don't meet your moral compass, then I'm not going to treat you the way you
hmm
deserve to be treated, especially when you're in a position where you, in some ways, as a doctor, take an oath to do what
exactly,
is in the best interest of your patients.
exactly, exactly. But the like the film shows also, it shows how these hospitals have been making money off black bodies, and how there's been a spike in the C-section rate for black women, and the C-section rate is 50% more costly than it is for a natural birth. So you can literally see through graphs and and through data how the hospitals are setting up larger incentives for themselves, especially the hospitals that are being so substantially defunded, which happens to be the hospitals that are in our
Right,
communities.
right, right.
So
So
yeah,
how do we
so
get that money back? We charge the insurance
exactly,
company. How do we get her out of this hospital so we can use the bed again? Well, we're not going to wait for her to labor for 14 hours. We'll just have a C-section
exactly.
and then they could kick you out. Because I had a C-section and they sent me home so fast, I didn't know what hit me.
Hmm.
I was like, you didn't even stitch it back. I got staples. Like, this is not okay. And they took him out. They took him out before I left.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out of the hospital. I kid you not. And maybe 24 hours, 48 hours. This is not okay with me. But what do you do? And a lot of people don't know, but I will say this, you can tell the doctor you don't want to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people just go, well, the doctor said it was time for me to go home. No, you can tell the doctor, like, look, I don't feel like this is the best decision for me right now. And I think I should
Hmm.
stay and I need you to do this.
That's
A
what I
lot of
tell
people don't
people.
know that. They just assume that, oh, well, the doctor said I could leave. I'm going to go home. But you're
Hmm.
not confident in what the doctor told you. You don't feel any better. And you're just taking it. And then a lot of people end up coming back 2, 3 days later because,
Exactly. Exactly.
you
So
know,
that's what I tell people too. Make sure y'all asking questions until you feel comfortable leaving. And keep asking them questions. Or, I feel like a lot of people are who are speaking up and aren't being seen. I tell them show up to that office and stand in front of their door the whole time until you
right,
are seen. Like until
right.
everything is checked out and you feel confident before you leave.
Yeah. I also tell people that if you're not comfortable and your doctor's not working with you or listening to you, then find another one too. Like, we not married, right? I'm not committed to you more than whatever it is that you have to do. So if you're not getting out of that relationship and the care that you need, then be like, I'm gonna go find another doctor. And I'm going to find another one until I find someone. And I think when we're people of color, because of our socioeconomic situation, and we feel like almost intimidated in certain situations, we don't know how to advocate for ourselves and say, you know what, I need to find another doctor. I need
Exactly.
to find someone else that can help me. I need to look at holistic medicine. I want to try this kind of treatment. We kind of wait for someone to dictate to us versus using our voice and advocating for ourselves. And that's just as important when you think about your care and your life.
Exactly, exactly, and so that's why it's very important for people to get educated because a lot of these doctors don't educate you on a lot, and
Mm-mm.
there's a lot of misinformation, um, that goes undetected because the doctors aren't going out their way to educate you. They just
Right,
kind of expect you to know. And
right.
so we
Or
often
not.
give exactly or not, yeah. And so
Right.
we use pamphlets on how people and we give them to people on how to advocate for themselves and things to look for. Early fibroid detection is a big one. If they identify with HELP syndrome or um, postpartum depression or
Mhm.
things like that. We kind of teach people how to identify with certain things and then have them reach out to a birthing professional. But
That's
yeah, I think
great.
it's very important that we educate ourselves and advocate for ourselves, advocate for our partners as much as we can.
Thank you so much, Bruce, for having this conversation with me. I really feel like you turn this into a voice and a platform, and you're advocating for all the people um in this process, for all the
Mhm.
people that don't have a voice. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you can do that for so many people and bring so much light to something that's happening in the time, in the time that you have kind of been dealing with this. How important is a support system through all of
Oh, so
this?
a support system is very, very, very important. If I didn't have Amber's mother, to help me out with my son, I don't know what I would do.
Right,
She ended up not working, going back to work at the hospital, of course, because they killed her daughter.
right,
So she's been staying with me, and she's been very supportive of helping me with my son when I need to, because I'm traveling a lot now,
right.
for the advocacy work and for the film and for policy work. I sit on a few committee boards. New York State just asked me to join their mortality and morbidity advisory board
Yes, do
for
it.
the Bronx. So it's few. I'm in the process now.
Do
So
it. I'm a big
um,
advocate for people of color sitting on panels and in seats where we need to be, because for so
exactly.
long we're not in so many spaces where people make decisions about our lives and we're not at the table. And
Exactly.
so everything that you could sit there and advocate for, not to put the pressure on you or anything, but it's really important for me as a person of color who works with children and education. I always tell people this: I want to be able to sit at the tables and be respected in the conversation, not because I'm a woman and I'm loud, but because I have the credentials to be able to, and the experience to be able to sit there. And so if you can get in those spaces, that's really important, because a lot of times the people making those decisions don't look like us, but they're making decisions for us.
Exactly, exactly. And so, it's very important to have a support, uh, multiple support resources. Um, through the midwives and doulas, I was able to get grief counseling for free. Nobody ever asked me for a dollar out of pocket.
Hmm.
So really leaning in on my community, for help, because I had Amber to help me. Amber was, somebody that I was able to confide in, and she was also, a counselor as well.
Right.
So she was somebody that I was able to turn to. I had very bad depression and anxiety issues that only she was able to help me with.
Right.
And so, after her passing, I needed something to lean on, because I knew that I couldn't, fall into a hole. I couldn't fall into
Right.
depression. I couldn't, just mope around and just let that take over me.
Mhm.
I knew I needed to do something, and I couldn't do it without support. So, leaning in on the community, finding people who are dealing with, similar situations that you're dealing with, who understand you and get you. Because I even reached out to my closest of friends, and they didn't know what to say to me. They didn't know how to
Right.
talk to me. They didn't know how to be there for me. And
Right.
that's not their fault. They just, they've never been in a situation like that, or there's only so much that they can do for you.
Right.
So really leaning in on people in the community that you can confide in, and that you can, um, share those similarities with, or go through that grieving process, or learning how to cope with things.
Yeah.
Leaning in on family members, if you need a break, just let people know that you need a break and that you need
Right.
some help. Don't just stand around and not say anything, because that's what's going to eat you up. So,
Right.
reaching out to people, letting people know that you need help, and that you're, and to make it okay to not to make it okay to say that you're not okay.
Right. It's
It
okay to
is
not be okay.
it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
So letting people know that, and people will empathize, and people will try to do what they can for you. So leaning in on that support system is huge.
That's great. I'm so excited that we finally got to sit and talk. How is your son?
Oh, he's phenomenal. He's a character. He's so funny. He has a better social life than I do. I tell people that all the time. He has a better social life than I do.
I mean,
That kid
he
is
is
a star.
3.
Yeah. Coming up.
Does are you able to like turn off everything and kind of be present with him and just take in that joy with him?
Yeah, I do. Often we go on little getaways.
Yeah.
I try to tune everything out, stay away from the phone, or we'll do stuff together. And learning with him and learning through him, and um, yeah, being present with him in these
Yeah.
moments, because
It's different.
kids grow up fast too.
They
So
do.
when you by the time you don't want to blink and miss
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
So trying to be as attentive as you can, and um, and just learning with him and growing together, I think is
Yeah.
very important.
That's
Yeah,
dope. I love kids. No,
me
I don't
too.
know if I do, but I'm thinking about it. But I love the that no matter like what I'm feeling, that when I'm around little kids like that, like I pull it together for them. Like you adults, I really don't care. But
Hmm.
when I'm around a kid, I don't know. It's just something about kids and their laughter and their joy and them that just makes me feel like, all right, well, maybe the rest of the world right now outside of this is not cool, but like right here in this moment with you, you're
Hmm.
funny and you're cute and you're this, and it just makes me feel like I always feel joy when I'm not adulting and I could just take them in and enjoy that space with them, because I don't get to do that anywhere else in life. They're
Exactly.
gonna grow up and they're not gonna be like that anymore. So at 3 years old, it's like, oh, you saying funny things and you're so cute, but you see the world a total different way
Hmm.
than I see it. right now. And so it's like it's just a whole different way of looking at joy and letting it,
Joy, yeah.
yeah, that you could watch somebody else's joy. I tell people all the time, one of my favorite sounds is kids laughing, is a baby laughing, because it's just so genuine.
It is.
It's just so
Mm-hmm.
genuine. I'm like, I wish I could just laugh like that. Because as you go through life changes. You don't have that anymore. There's something part of you that just changes when you become an adult, and you don't have that anymore. So when
It's
I
not so
see it
funny no
in,
more.
yeah, when I see it in kids, I'm like, yo, you know what I mean? Like, you just so happy with that cardboard box. I bought you a toy. You don't want the toy. You just happy with the
Mm-hmm.
box, and it's just like, yo, like life could be so simple sometimes, and there's so much joy in so many little things, and we kind of miss it. So, I'm a big advocate for take the time and take care of yourself in the midst of the work that you're doing, because
Most
this is
definitely.
big work and this is important work, but you got to pour back into yourself too.
Oh, definitely, definitely, and that's something that I'm also grateful for, the community also, because it was, the doulas, who are also not only trying to, take more holistic approaches, but they were teaching me different meditations and different kriyas and, different ways to exercise your mind and your body.
Yeah,
And I'm truly grateful for that. Learning things like that and like learning from the community, yes, is huge. So I can be present for my son.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I appreciate you so much. Please come back later and talk to us
Oh, for
again
sure.
when your building opens and you do that ribbon cutting. And I would love to support any way that Save Loud and Karen L could support,
Oh,
because I know there's so many families and so many women and men that need support in this particular topic. If there's anything I could do, definitely let me know.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.